Hi, I'm Bruce Pattinson from Untitled Education Centre. Today we're going to talk about the context of the Merchant of Venice, and this is extremely important for your studies. It's directly relevant to human experiences. You'll need to pay attention because some of the ideas in the context link directly to how the play was perceived at the time, how the play is perceived now, and how you're going to perceive the play, and it's directly relevant to those areas. Instead of looking at me for the next 5 or so minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to show you stills from a production of The Merchant of Venice from the pop-up globe that I took when I saw it in Sydney last year. So enjoy those rather than look at me. Let's go. So the first thing in the context is we are in Elizabethan England, and we're right near the end of the Elizabethan period. The Merchant of Venice is probably written sometime between 1596 and 1598. And Elizabethan England was a changing society, and we've looked at Elizabethan England in another video, and if you don't know anything about it, you should go back and have a look at that one. The Merchant of Venice is a play that we can say that the response to Shakespeare's own audience would have been very, very different to what modern audiences react to it. Following some elements of the play, interpretations and presentations have changed over time due to context. For example, we see the treatment of the Jews, and that's the first thing I'll probably talk about, very differently these days. And you should probably think about those sorts of things when you're looking at the different human experiences and how audiences respond. Attitudes to and treatment of the Jews is very different now to how it was. Shylock is the play's main character and villain. The addition of the play that we're looking at would certainly make him out to be the villain in the context of Shakespearean times, but we see the treatment of him as a Jew as very different in modern times. We certainly see the local people as nearly xenophobic, and that's one of a very modern topic that we need to think about. Xenophobia is a society that's distrustful of people who come from outside it. And certainly the Jews are outsiders in all of Europe at that particular place in time. Jews were seen as the Christ killers, and in a very religious society, they were certainly outcast because of that, and only deemed responsible and reasonable people unless they converted to Christianity. And this is what happens in the play. And yet a modern audience would see this as far too dramatic, and certainly taking away someone's culture and character is unacceptable in modern times. We certainly see in the play that the characters, by converting him and not killing him, think they're doing him a favour. Modern audiences and many modern audiences see this very differently. An Elizabethan audience would have accepted that Shylock as an evil person doing evil for evil's sake. And they also would have accepted him as more of a cartoonish figure, a gross, ugly and twisted Jewish type who would enjoy nothing better than cutting out a pound of flesh. However, attitudes have certainly changed now, and this is especially true of the Jewish culture, much because of the atrocities that happened during the Second World War, but also because the world has moved on, and persecution and injustice of any race now are seen as certainly unacceptable. Indeed, modern productions and many modern productions have sought ways to make Shakespeare appear more human, in fact, and make him much more of a sympathetic character. Some even portray him as a victim of the xenophobia in Venice at the time, and the reason for his actions is because they make him an outcast. Some productions of the play have even finished at the end of Act 4, Scene 1, thus putting the emphasis on his defeat. Modern audiences have a vastly different attitude to the end of Shylock's problems, because that taking away of his culture and Christianity, as I said before, is certainly unacceptable. The other factor with the Jewishness and the xenophobia against it is that Christians were not allowed lend money with interest. The only group of people who were to do that were the Jews. Shylock is a money lender, basically, and that's one of the only jobs that Jews are allowed to do, and that was seen as a bad, in inverted commas, thing again, and another thing that made the Jewish people outcasts. To a Christian, lending money for interest was seen as a pathway to hell. A modern audience wouldn't see it this way. In fact, we're quite used to having money lent to us at a high rate of interest. That would seem to be a normal thing in our modern society. So taking away that aspect of it also changes how we perceive the play. Bonds and contracts are also very important. As I said in the setting, Venice was very proud of its legal system, and it needed to be a very structured and straightforward legal system because they dealt with people from all over the world as a trading centre. Now in this case, we seem to think as a modern audience that cutting out a pound of someone's flesh might be a little bit extreme for not paying back a loan, and probably, as my cameraman's laughing in the background there, it would seem to be a little bit excessive. However, in those days, law was law, and there's nothing that anyone could do to stop him cutting out a pound of flesh, except as we see in the play. A modern audience would still think that a contract between two adults is binding, but certainly they would not see the pound of flesh as a result of that. Also, we need to think in context the role and status of women in society. Portia, for example, is a very, very intriguing character, both in an Elizabethan context and in the modern context. Like a good and obedient daughter, she cooperates with the law of a father's will and tests the caskets to get the husband of her own choosing, but she's not submissive in any other aspect of her character, and certainly not submissive in any other aspect of the play. For example, in Act 1, Scene 2, she displays wit, sarcasm, and a strong sense of self-worth in her amusing and denigrating descriptions of the men who have come to woo her. She adopts disguise, saves the day in court, fools everyone, including her new husband, Bassiano. Then she taunts him for giving away the ring he said he would always wear. She's a very active and assertive character in the play, and certainly more active and assertive than many of the males in the play, and certainly her male counterparts. If we look at the women in Shakespeare's other comedies, they are witty and assertive, but in the end submissive to their husbands. At the end of The Merchant of Venice, Portia is still leading everybody along. She has only just revealed that she was Balthazar and Nerissa the clerk, and offers to explain all during the evening. Nerissa joins in all of Portia's assertive practices, and Jessica is positively rebellious to her own father Shylock. It is likely that Elizabethan audience would have seen the behaviour of these women in the context of them being Venetian. Certainly, British women would not behave in this way, but Venetians were brazen and sophisticated, probably unlike British women at that time. I'm not going down that path. For all these reasons, the play lends itself to different interpretations. Certainly an Elizabethan audience would have seen it very differently to a modern audience, and they would have certainly been shouting out at the husbands for being sort of weak and unassertive. They would have accepted some of the situations in the play far more than modern audiences, who begin to question some of those things in the play. Shakespeare's play, however, still has relevance to us, as we'll see when we look at some of the other areas such as setting, characters, and human experiences. So that's all for this play. I hope you enjoy looking at scenes from the play. We'll catch you next time. Goodbye for now.